Welcome back, folks. Today we're going to talk about Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2, a sequel to Space Marine 1 from 2011 that I really enjoyed playing not that long ago. And I know a bit about 40K universe, at least the general outline of the factions, a bit about the history, and along its gothic, grimdark aesthetic and, well, Space Marine armor, I knew right away that I will be playing this on release. Space Marine 2 can be described as a third-person action hack-and-slash shooter developed by Saber Interactive and published by Focus Entertainment, where you take a role of Titus, again, as the story continues. So technically it's recommended to play the first one, being this is a somewhat of a sequel, but you can go and play this even without Space Marine 1 and it won't be a giant problem. From the initial reveal trailers and gameplay teasers, this title looked like something really promising, and because I was familiar with Saber's previous titles like World War Z and so on, I had some hopes for this in general. Luckily, all of my prayers were answered and Space Marine 2 is great, from the visual presentation to crisp sound design and brutal combat. I had a big smile on my face through the entire campaign because the way the game is designed, it captured a feeling of the original but now in a much higher graphical fidelity and set designs. Right from the start, it introduces you into its brutal world of constant war and chaos, where an old enemy, the Tyranids, launch an invasion of the world that belongs to the Imperium, and the protection of that world is absolute, meaning, well, you better get some Space Marines involved. By making your way through the forest, in the background you see huge waves of enemies storming the compound, sounds of gunfire as the situation on the ground gets worse and worse. And it really sets up the mood as it makes the game bigger in that sense of detail, because immersion is a very important detail here, and with all of the new tech they have, it can be, well, sold, for a lack of a better word, more than the original from 2011. Of course, things go south as always, and without spoiling the story too much, something happens and Titus is, well, back, angrier and stronger than ever. So now as things move on, we are tasked to destroy even more Tyranids, to which I happily obliged. Going through the 12 to 15 hour campaign, well, depending on the difficulty and your play style, it puts you in various scenarios and locations, from huge open areas that are designed in these amazing set pieces to more confined spaces that pits you against Reaper swarms, for example, that look like a rat swarm, and navigating through them while being attacked as they form these attack patterns was nuts, but luckily there is a flamethrower to even the odds. Besides Tyranids, Space Marine 2 does have some more enemies later in the story, but of course I don't want to go into spoilers. Not orcs though, being that they were present in the first game and played a huge role there in what goes on in the story, because in the Space Marine 2 they decided to go more with Tyranids, which is a nice thing to kind of shake things up, you know, so it's not like the same thing from 2011 or from the first game. And again, I personally didn't care if it's going to be orcs and Tyranids, because at the end of the day we're gonna be dismantling them all. But Tyranids are fun to play against, because through the campaign it's always action on top of more action, as with every step you take, danger lurks, and a lot of these objectives will be pretty much saving the day and going against impossible odds as you slowly start uncovering another plotline and things start falling into place. You won't be going alone, as Titus is joined by two others that are either AI controlled or reserved for co-op if you want to play with other people or go for PvP or PvE operations multiplayer. For going on a mission, you will be able to choose your loadout in terms of weapons, so one melee weapon, one primary and one secondary, which is usually a pistol. During combat, you will be switching between the two as you fire some rounds and storm into a swarm using a chainsword or something else. For example, there is also a big hammer which is pretty much decimating everything that comes near you, and throughout the mission there will be drops where you can change your weapon, or the game will give you a new weapon type usually, which is connected to the enemy type you're about to encounter or maybe the terrain you're gonna be playing in. Not all Tyranids are built the same, as most, trash enemy type will be one swing, sometimes two, while bigger ones will make it as a duel where you have to either roll from attacks, which you cannot dodge, which is a red circle, which indicates that, and the parry blue ones to deal a counter and then finisher to wrap things up. During fights, one of the things which stands out is the swarm itself, as Saber uses tech from World War Z, where they have huge wave of enemy, attacks like zombies that start climbing on top of each other, and then you have to constantly attack them to mitigate the amount of enemies that you have to deal with up close. I think that really fits here because they're using Tyranids for this, and it's really well done. On the story side, overall I think it was good, with a nice balance between action scenes and more, how would I say, tame, peaceful ones where it allows the story to move forward. I do wish it was longer though, just because of how much I enjoyed it, but I understand that if you want to create these grand scenarios, they are expensive and time consuming on the budget, but for me personally it was never about the length of the game, but rather what I get out of it. And in these 30 hours or so, between single player and multiplayer, I had more enjoyment than from some games that go up to 60, 100, 200 hours or even more. But even that, of course, is subjective based, person to person. There is grind in Space Marine 2 in multiplayer. It's not annoying though, it respects your time, but I'm talking about single player mostly here in general. You don't have to go and collect 7 billion different points of interest and whatever currency or items, it's just a story you follow and enjoy it. But I do think that maybe some areas of the map should have been more open to explore. Sometimes I feel it was a bit too linear in some sense, like for example when it comes to pathing in general, the way you reach an objective, because well, the game wants you focused on that fight, which again I understand, but it's just that environmental design was fantastic and I just wanted to see more and explore more. That might be just a personal thing of mine. Of course, a budget is a budget, and I feel like devs wanted to really stay focused on a specific vision to serve the story and action, or well, the game, which was a good decision, being that they were able to focus and not wander off and introduce gameplay systems into the game, which would be burden, half-bakes, or just extra stuff which no one needs or no one is gonna be using. There is a lot of detail in areas that you can visit though. When you are back in the HQ, from time to time you will encounter people talking about stuff, great for lore enthusiasts, and I spend a lot of time just zooming around onto things and enjoying the art style. Sometimes it's good, just to stop and look around. Since you are an ultramarine, you have regular citizens of the Imperium and even like the regular army, and well, as I said, normal humans, revere you as a deity, which really helps with the fantasy. Armor pieces as well, insanely detailed, I love them. I also have to talk about audio, because oh boy, this is crisp. Music, the sound of Tyranids screeches while they attack, weapon sounds that feel like you're right next to your face, while Space Marines shout one-liners while rushing at the enemy. That experience was fantastic from the audio design, and how the audio was recorded, so it's great. Performance and stability were solid. I really didn't have problems. Game was running smoothly most of the time and the server wasn't dropping, at least for me personally. Maybe a drop or two sometimes when it comes to frame rate, but it wasn't noticeable or frequent enough to cause issues. Besides that, I had a few visual glitches where, for example, a Tyranid gets stuck into the ground during combat though. Even if it happens, you won't notice it, or it's not going to be constant to the point because, well, you still have to fight 7 gazillion other enemies. And if I take all of the segments of the game and my experience playing it, I can say from my personal experience that this was one of the best titles I played in recent time, and I hope more games follows a similar path where not every single game needs its playtime extended with, useless artificial things, but rather an experience that immerses you into its world, leaving you wanting for more. And you can find more of that in operations that follow the main story from time to time, but they tell it from a perspective of a different team that was there and what they had to do, to help you reach your own objective in the single player. These also go into multiplayer where you can farm weapons, armor customizations, different classes, pieces for like your armor and much more. They also mentioned upcoming free updates to the game that will bring new missions, scenarios and so on, so that will be interesting to follow on. And I find myself going back into it almost daily, playing an operation or two or just replaying the campaign but on higher difficulty this time. And I know it's a premium price of 60 euros, dollars or your region equivalent, so it's definitely an expense, but if you want to wait for a sale and don't want to pay the full price because, well, economy is doing just great, but as soon as this goes on a sale or you maybe have a chance to play it, look into it, because if you were waiting for a proper action title in a long time, well, look no further than Space Marine 2. And it really got me thinking about gaming in general today and how much we missed these sort of games where I feel like every single game today is treated as a product. Basically just that, you know, a product you can sell, that you can extend and maximize the amount of money that you're gonna be getting from that project. And that's normal. Every single business wants, you know, to make more money than they can with the least amount of resources which are gonna be invested into it. But I feel like a lot of games right now, and maybe some of them which have great direction, still go into these things which, or let's say features, which they think might fit and they waste their time on it and it's just not working well. Or as I said, they try to artificially extend the length of the game to which it's like, okay, now you can collect this. Oh, now we have something special which you can do. It's okay from time to time, but if we only have those games, it's just going to burn out people really fast, and at the end of the day, there are only so many games like those which can take the spot and not be completely forgotten within a month. And with this, I also want to end the video. Thank you for watching, consider liking and subscribing for more, and join our community on Twitter and Discord. Huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters, and as always, stay classy everyone, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye.